Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and depending on what part of the, I guess it's morning for everybody. But anyway, so we're doing a rebroadcast of this material, as I mentioned in some of the emails that I sent out, because it really was well attended a week ago, and this training is really important. So we're not here to market stuff. We are here to explain how to build your business. So if you're selling product, if you're doing managed services, or whatever it is you're doing, I believe what we're going to present today is going to open up some new doors. And one of the big issues I'm hearing out there is it's hard to find new customers. I was just meeting with a sales guy yesterday over lunch, and he said the landscape is changing out there. It's a lot harder. So anyway, so we're going to address that today, how you can build business. And as I mentioned, we've gotten sponsorship from Checkpoint and Ingram Micro to go through today's program, so you didn't have to pay anything. And so that I'm really excited about. I want to thank Ryan Patterson. He's actually on right now. So Ryan, hello.
Hello, everyone.
Okay. So and Ryan is actually works for Checkpoint, but he works with Ingram Micro full time and helps with that program. So anyway, I'm going to dive right into the training. We want to get into the details. We've got about 2 hours here. Just a little bit about our format. We've got some time where we're going to look at some slides, but not all slides. We've got some time where we're going to look at do some interview here with Checkpoint, and then we're also going to move into some Q&A. So just a few things. If you haven't spent much time on Webinar Jam before, you should have a place on your screen to the right-hand side where you can ask questions. It's a little chat box. So if you want to chat questions to us, we will see those. In fact, if you would, it would really help us if you could just chat us, where you're coming from, where you're coming in from. So whatever state you're in right now, that'd be helpful. That way we know that you can actually hear us. Because when you get on these webinars, who knows? We might be just talking and you can't hear us. So if you chat in your box, we'll kind of see that. And I actually got somebody who said no sound, but then a bunch of other people said they can hear me. So I'm guessing everybody can hear me. Otherwise you wouldn't have known to chat me. So we got people from all over the place: Illinois, Texas, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, which is where I'm from, upstate New York, not to be confused with Manhattan, Connecticut. So anyway, all over the place. So great. Thank you for chiming in there. And thank you, Marcia, for telling us that you can actually hear us. That's really cool. So if for some reason you don't have sound, that might be a system problem on your end, but we'll keep in touch. Anyway, so let's dive into the training here. We're going to go through about 45 minutes right here of some fairly intense things. Get out a pen and take some notes, because some of the things I'm going to give you here will help you if you could actually apply them. And they're not hard to do. They're things that you actually can put to work right away. So let me pull up some slides here. And so here's what we're talking about. Actually, let me put this in slideshow mode here, if you just give me a second. All right. Okay. And so Ryan, I don't know if you could just chime in and tell me, can you hear me? Can you see my slides?
Yep, everything's up and looking good.
Okay, so here it is: how to transform your technology reseller business into a high profit machine using security. And if you've followed me for any length of time, or maybe you've never heard of me, either way, I'm really into security, but I'm not into security because I think hacking is cool, and I'm really into the cool things that can be done by hackers and cyber criminals and all that stuff. What I'm really concerned about here is how to build a business. And my background really is reseller business. I've been in the reseller world since the early 90s. Prior to that, working for Johnson & Johnson and then Bank of America in the IT organization, and made the move over. By the way, anyone who was in that role, you made a smart move, moving over to the profit center side of the business and not being in the IT group yourself. But security became interesting to me really in about 1995, and actually I was a Checkpoint reseller early on, right when they were just starting up. ISS and Checkpoint were the two hot products out there, and we signed on with Checkpoint early on and built a substantial business. In fact, it was just the 4 guys starting this group, and within 5 years we were a $75 million company, and a lot of it was because of our focus on security. It opened doors that we never imagined we could get through, because it created uniqueness, differentiation. And so I want to show you some really, I think, amazing things that are going to really help you. Again, I want to thank Ingram Micro and Checkpoint for jumping in there and sponsoring this thing. And so I want to check, by the way, it's hard to read this, but it actually says checkpoint-licensing at ingrammicro.com. So if you want to get in touch with the team that works with Ryan there on Checkpoint Business at Ingram Micro, that's how you get a hold of them. Just shoot them an email, and they can tell you how to get things set up and what the opportunities are there for you. And you know, I've talked a lot with the folks at Ingram Micro. I was on the phone just last week with some of their executive management, and they said explicitly, we don't want to just sell products. We want to help these resellers really grow their business. And so today's program is not about the technology, even though it's being sponsored by technology. It's about the business opportunity. It's how to attract new people and how to get in front of decision makers and how to get people moving forward with security who, you know, might not want to spend any more money, but you and I know they need security. And if we could convince them of that, there's a huge, huge opportunity out there. So let's get into that. First of all, I want to just throw out there what I'm hearing. I do a lot of coaching. I'm on the phone every afternoon, you know, one after another, with coaching clients that I work with, either going through a training class that they're going through online with my program, or they're in one of my higher end coaching programs trying to build a business. They're either sales, marketing, or business owner type individuals, all in the reseller community. And here's what they're telling me. Like, I was on the phone just last week with a guy, and he's trying to build a business. How many new logo companies have you signed up? And when I ask that question, I frequently get, you know, sometimes I get some excuses or some hems and haws or some, you know, well, our pipeline's full. But I keep coming back and saying, I'm really just looking for a number here. How many new clients did you sign into your, say, your managed service program, or did you take on as new clients and start doing projects with? And the answer is, I would say most of the time, 90% of the time, for the entire company, the number's in single digits. You know, it's like 5, 6, 10, or 10's a 2-digit number, I guess, but the 0 doesn't count. Well, actually it does. But here's the thing, that is not good. And it's not getting better. In fact, if you've been reading the Wall Street Journal, which I hope you are, you ought to be reading the CIO Journal, because even though they're talking about larger companies, they are giving us the trends, and they're talking a lot right now about IT spending. IT spending is down. But you know what? If you're on my newsletter list, you're going to see a graph come out, because we're going to mail our newsletter out this on Monday, actually. And I have an amazing graph in there. Spending is down, except in the world of security and cloud. Security and cloud. So if you own a big cloud offering, you might be doing okay. So for instance, if you are Amazon, and I know nobody on this call is, then you're probably in good shape. But if you're out there trying to sell infrastructure or even managed services, expect your business to decline. You might have a good run rate of MSP business, but it's a commodity. And in fact, I am aware of some coaching programs out there that are built specifically to help people grow MSP business. And I appreciate what they've done. Really, they've done a good job. They've got good insight. They've helped companies really grow. But if you look at Moore's Law, Inside the Tornado, Jeffrey Moore, that's who I'm talking about, he said in his book in 1995, expect a 5 to 8 year cycle, meaning grab onto a technology like networking or voice over IP or even managed services and expect a 5 to 8 year growth pattern. And then you've got to re-engineer. Now, there are 4 things, and I'm going to go into this later. There are 4 things that keep selling, just 4. And I'll tell you what those are later on. But the point is that if you're just selling product or just trying to do some services or just in the managed service business, I know that it's hard to find new clients. I know that it's a price war out there. And I know there's a lot of offerings coming out of, you know, people working out of their garage one-man shop that are stealing business from you with an offering that really is subpar. But they're getting away with it because everybody's offering looks the same. And I want to show you how to get out of that. In fact, I've got a client who was in that boat. You might know Randy Sklar. He's worked with Ingram Micro for a long time, been a part of the Venture Tech Network. I met him at a Venture Tech event out in Las Vegas I was speaking at years ago. And actually, his father at the time owned the business. And his father was looking to retire, but the numbers were down. And I had that conversation with him. and they really wanted to change. Now, we got into the MSP business first and started building, an annuity business for Randy, but he needed a way to jumpstart and really get into new clients. And so we immediately started heading down the security road. And I want to tell you some amazing things about what happened. First of all, let me go back to the other people that I've spoken with over the last couple of months, and I'm asking.
Hey, Dave, it's Ryan. I think we lost video feed. I don't know if anyone else can
lost
see it.
Video. Okay, can somebody tell me if you've lost video? All right, let me. All right, can you see me?
Yes, I see you.
All right, good. So let me bring up my slideshow again. All right.
There we go. We're back.
My slides. Okay,
yep.
Cool. All right, thanks for bringing that up. See, it's good that you're there. So there's an immediate value brought to you from Checkpoint and Ingram Micro. Otherwise, I'd be like talking to myself here, right? So I'm on the phone and I'm talking with other resellers and I'm asking them how many new clients, and they're not getting a lot of clients. And a lot of times from there, I'll go and I say, well, how many meetings are you having every month? Or how many phone calls are you making to get meetings every month? And the numbers are abysmal. Now, I refer to this as a conversion rate. We're going to get into this more in a little bit, what conversion rates really are and how to measure success. But as I'm working with these people and hearing, 100 phone calls, 200 phone calls with 1 or 2% response rate just to get a meeting, this is difficult. This is, I just can't imagine going home. I was talking to a person the other day. Their appointment setting, they make 300 phone calls per day. Now they got some automatic dialing and stuff going on for them so they can make that many calls. But I asked her, how many meetings do you land in a day? She said, 1. Whoa, 300 phone calls, 1 meeting. So I want to tell you what Randy did. Randy took a process that I put together, focused on security. He's going after small business owners. And in just 4 weeks, and by the way, he's the president of the company. He's not out selling full-time or making 300 phone calls. I think he had a list of 500 to work with. He set up 34 meetings in 4 weeks. Now get this, not only did he set up 34 meetings in 4 weeks, he closed 100% of them, all 34, into an assessment, security assessment. And then he started working on moving them into a managed service program, and many have converted already, and many are in process. Now, I hope you're wondering, how did we do that? And I want to share with you how we did that. So we're going to get to that, okay? We're getting to that really soon here. I want to show you what we did, okay? So here's what happened. First of all, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. We were actually doing a lunch and learn. It doesn't have to be a lunch and learn. And by the way, if you've done lunch and learns, most of the people I know doing them are getting 0 to 2% response rate on any action from a lunch and learn. In other words, 50 people came or 20 people came and 1 person ended up doing some business, or they were all existing clients and we got some new business out of it. Who knows if they would have done business anyway? I don't know. But here's the thing. We put together a campaign that drove people to a meeting. It didn't have to be a lunch and learn. It could have been one-on-one. And in fact, Randy is using the same process to build one-on-one meetings in between his events. He and I are doing another event in about a month from now. He just started marketing. He already has 12 brand new reseller business owners, decision maker level people attending that event. And he hasn't even really started marketing. He only went to phase 1 of our marketing process. And I'm going to show you kind of what we're doing out there. But right now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to get into how do we convert those people. That's what I want to talk about. So we got 34 people that we're meeting with. And again, it could have been independent, could have been online. It happened to be in a live lunch and learn event, and I happened to be speaking. But I want to show you what I told that audience, because we had a room full, and in fact, we had to turn people away because more than we could fit wanted to come to that meeting. 34 people, decision makers, sitting in that room, and I had 1 hour to convert them to a security assessment. And that was our goal. We wanted to move them to a security assessment. I'm going to show you why that is later and how that led into more business. So let me give you just a piece of the presentation here, and I'm going to take you through over the next 45 minutes, different pieces of the presentation I used. Obviously, I can't show you the whole hour because we only have 45 minutes and I want to explain the process to you. But you can use this same exact process right here to do this. And by the way, all this stuff is available to you, and I'm going to show you how you can get that as well. So here's how I opened up. I started out by not talking about products or even about security, but about their business and what it means to go digital and how it affects them. You know, small businesses are competing. If depending on what kind of business they're in, they might be competing with Amazon or Home Depot or Walmart or, you know, some big store. Who knows who they're competing with? Somebody online, somebody big, somebody global, somebody international. And they're having to figure out, how do I become more online, more engaged in social media, more connected to the people that I do business with? I was just on Amazon this morning, and there was an advertisement on there for same-day delivery. How do you compete with that? You know, low price, same-day delivery, Prime membership, free shipping. Who can compete with that? So we started out talking about what it means to go digital and the digitization megatrend, the Internet of Things, and needing to have everything connected so that you've got feedback, you've got communication with your clients, you're connected with them. Big data analytics, you know, being able to leverage the big data engines, even in like Facebook. Those people are marketing through Facebook. They're leveraging a lot of big data engine behind that, and it's important. The small businesses are moving to the cloud. They're trying to cut costs out. They're trying to cut complexity out, gain some stability. They're moving to the cloud according to the Gartner Group, and we expect 80% of them in the next 4 or 3 years to be in the cloud. That's going to kill any infrastructure business that you were hoping to get, any refresh business. It's going away. Bring your own device is everywhere, right? Everyone's using their own stuff, their own phones, their own tablets. This is stuff that's happening. And the question is, what's happening to security? That's where I took them. Okay, you have to do all this stuff, but what's happening in security when that happens, and where are you going to be exposed? And of course, if you look at what small business owners care about, they care about growth, they care about cash, they care about customer service, and if they get hacked, if they lose their customer data, they could easily be out of business. I started out looking at the big picture and just showing them what's happening around the world. You know, we're seeing news articles from the dam in New York that was, taken over, and some of the power grids that have been affected, and some of the foreign governments getting into our stuff, stealing our fighter jet plans and our helicopter plans, and, all kinds of stuff. The ISIS people out there, starting to, find out that they can certainly pay people off to break into stuff who have greater technology than they do. It's a big deal. Every day our government is being attacked. Now, this isn't small business. This is big. It's global. It's powerful. But it comes back to the smaller businesses, too. The ransomware things going on out there are huge. It used to be all small businesses, but now some bigger things are happening, right? The hospitals, Hollywood Hospital recently, and then 2 other hospitals were hit recently. And I think one more actually was just reported this past week. And they're wanting big money. I mean, imagine anybody in healthcare with the prescriptions and the protocols and all that stuff are digital, and they can't get to their data, and they paid it. And the FBI says, we don't really think you ought to pay it, but what's a hospital going to do? They got people in there that are dying. This is bad, right? And so any kind of medical stuff is a target. And then we got this big encryption mess with the iPhone, just, heating up the whole security battle. The ransomware attacks are growing, by the way, doubling every year over the last 3 years. We're up to about 600,000 reported right now. But as the Wall Street Journal article noted, most people don't even report ransomware. That's a big deal. Because remember, they're not losing credit card numbers, so they don't have to report it according to PCI standards. However, it's embarrassing, and they don't want to do that. They're also losing their intellectual capital to nation states, whether they know it or not. Wall Street Journal called this the greatest transfer of wealth in history. And who's doing that? Russia, China, collaborating together. Some folks that I know pretty well through the NSA were sharing with me. These companies are collaborating together and agreeing with one another, not to attack each other, but to take intellectual capital from the U.S., process, invention, whatever they can get their hands on, to boost their own economy. And that is what they're doing. It's a big deal. And it's all around us. It's happening. It's a war. And here's the thing. Because there's not body bags coming back with, dead people in it, nobody's paying attention. Nobody's listening. So here we have an urgent issue that I believe just about every single one of your clients has. But I bet if you were to walk in there and say, wow, look, the world's falling apart, cybercrime, blah, 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 you need to buy this, they would say, we got it covered. We don't need that. We don't, not this quarter, right? We don't have time for that right now. We're working on something else. Talk to us next year. And you and I know there's an urgent issue out there, but they don't. And so the question is, how did I get 34 people in a room? But more importantly, how did I get 34 people to immediately, in the same hour, agree to move forward and do a security assessment with Randy? So comes up the question, how did we convert them? And so I want to show you where we went from there. First of all, this is, maybe it's not a new idea, but it is a new idea. Most sales organizations treat marketing and selling as separate entities. Marketing does stuff like meeting planning and putting business cards together and spending money on logos and rebranding and, stuff like that. They order muffins for a morning meeting. But that's not what marketing is. Marketing is grabbing the attention and moving people. And when you start to combine the art of selling and the science of marketing together and become consultative in your approach, it's a powerful combination. You start to become that advisor that you really want to become with your clients. And the strategy has to come together. It has to change. You can't just assume we're good technology, therefore people will come. If we make it, they'll come. They won't come. And they're not coming. And they're competing on price. But marketing has the power to move people. And so that's what I want to show you. How do we get that marketing power together? By the way, a lot of this is in my book. And then there's a whole training program, which I'm going to tell you about later on, which is expensive, but Ingram Micro and Checkpoint, as I mentioned in my email marketing that I sent out to everybody, have agreed to sponsor this training. In other words, they're willing to give 10 classes in this training away for free. And I'm going to tell you how that works later on. But this book explains a lot about what I'm talking about, and then it's much greater detail in the training program, which I'll tell you about a little bit later, okay? Here's the nutshell right here. Here's the core, the foundational thing. When we're out there selling something and we really want to be profitable, we want to get away from just the commodity product pitch, we have to forget about products for a moment. Now, it's kind of funny for Ingram Micro and Checkpoint to sponsor a guy who's telling you to forget about products. I'm not saying you don't need the products. I'm saying you don't want to lead with the products. Instead, you want to focus on assets. Assets are data, their intellectual capital, their financial data, their big data. They're the stuff that companies need today, no matter what department it is. They're running on technology, and it's data. It's not about infrastructure. It's data that they really are trying to use and work with to figure out who to market to, who to help, what's going on, where to put their efforts. It's all in data. Then we need to know who's the asset owner. Who is it that actually cares about this stuff? Who's liable? And this frequently is, in the small business owner. If they have partners, it's them and their partners. If they have vice presidents, it's them and their vice presidents. It's anybody who makes money with the data. It's not the people that support technology. And security is urgent. It is really urgent. I'm just telling you, their data is at risk. They just don't know it. And so we need to figure out how to make a conversion. So I want to throw a little chart up here. I've been doing lunch and learns for a long time, since I started that company or helped start that company in 1995. I want to tell you, the first lunch and learn I ever did, I got 6 people signed up to come to it. They were all IT people, and 2 of them actually showed up. So there I am giving kind of the keynote speech on something to 2 people, and boy, was it hard. It was embarrassing. It was horrible. But I remember when I left that meeting that day that I determined I was going to figure this marketing thing out. This is back in 1995, and I started reading every marketing, copywriting, anything that had to do with marketing and demand generation, direct marketing, anything like that. I started reading, studying, going to classes on it, and really trying to understand, how do you move people? Now, over the last 10 years, I've done a lot of lunch and learns on behalf of different resellers I've worked with, and my average conversion rate with audiences of somewhere between 30 and 50 executives, some bigger, some a little bit smaller, has averaged 75%, meaning 75% of that audience will move to an assessment. And our conversion rate on assessments is quite high too. I'm going to show you a conversion chart in a minute. In 60 minutes. And here are some numbers over the last year. Over the last year, our rates of conversion are well over 90%, well over 95%, in fact. A lot of them are 100%. That's pretty good. If you could do that, your pipeline would be full. And again, it doesn't have to be a lunch and learn. It's just how I do it. And the reason I do it that way, by the way, is I would rather give my initial sales call to 50 people at once and figure out who's really interested than go to drive to everybody's office and do it one at a time. That takes too long. But however you want to do it, it doesn't matter. The conversion rates work either way. It just depends on how you want to do it. So here's my conversion chart. This is how it works. Every one of these arrows between every one of these boxes is a point of conversion. So that you'll see in the center of this model is the assessment, the offer, or what I call an irresistible offer. I'm trying to drive my audience to an assessment because there's a model that I use or an assessment process I use that happens to have a very high conversion rate. Now, when I talk to the average company that's doing assessment type stuff, I find that their assessments don't convert. They'll do some, network assessment or a storage assessment or a security assessment, and I'm hearing conversion rates of 10 to 15%. But yet, when I talk to someone in security and say, what percentage of the time do your assessments show urgent issues? They say, whoa, it's like 95%. Well, why is the conversion rate so low if it's 95%? And the reason is because they're conducting the wrong kind of assessment, and I'm going to show you just in a moment here what that assessment ought to look like. If you look at the education box, that's my lunch and learn or my sales call or my webinar, and that's the group I'm talking to. And if you've ever seen the Challenger sale, Matthew Dixon, he has a new book out called The Challenger Customer, and he talks about re-engineering the thought process of the customer. And by the way, I really like that book. It's a brand new book, but it says pretty much the same thing that I've been saying since my first House in the Cloud book came out in 2007, and that is that you've got to come in with an urgent issue, and you have to have a way to re-engineer their thinking to show them that what they think really isn't correct, and that there is something they really do need to do. And that's what I'm presenting, and I want to show you just briefly some of the things I showed them in Randy's Lunch and Learn to get them to move to an assessment, and that's where our conversion rate was, that 100% or 95%. The last one I did with Randy, 34 people, 100% conversion. Now, the message box above education is the people that we marketed this event to. So we had a list of 500 people, and they were all new people, new prospects, and we managed to get 34 of them into that education box. In my training, I actually show how to multiply that number after the fact of the event using some marketing strategies that build on the event that can actually double that conversion rate. So some pretty cool stuff that we don't have time to go into right now. The assessment conversion to the project side should be somewhere between 50 and 90%, depending on how well you do it. And I'm going to show you what you need to do to get there. But all of that drives justification to continue the security process through into an annuity service, which is your MSSP, your managed service offering with security as part of the program. And we're not talking about firewall management, by the way. I'll show you in a moment what I'm talking about. Here's just another quick example. Here's a guy I met just about a half a year ago, or actually a little more now, 3/4 of a year ago. And he was in the same boat, no new business. And we decided to do a lunch and learn. Well, he was afraid to do it. He was concerned about if it would actually work, and he actually hesitated. And so we only had 2 weeks left, but in 2 weeks, he got 22 new prospects. We converted 100% of them. And then he became a Checkpoint reseller at that point, and he used the Checkpoint box as part of his assessment process and immediately had 7 new deals in the pipeline within a couple of days. And now he's working through closing those. In fact, he landed a big deal just the other day as a result of that event. So and both these guys and anyone I've done these with has said, this really is pretty easy. And it's not the lunch and learn that's easy, it's the messaging, it's the conversion process that's easy when you know what to tell them. So what is the message? And we just have about 15 minutes here for me to kind of fly through the message. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, get into a lot more detail in my book and in my training, which again is available to you at no cost if you sign on to that, and I'll show you how to do that in just a short while here. Okay. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, or Ryan did, but Checkpoint is actually going to give away a 700 series appliance today during this webinar toward the end. So hang in there with us because you might be the winner. And I'll tell you what, it would be really cool to go home today with a brand new box like that. So how do we convert them in just 60 minutes? This is the first thing I showed them after I gave them some statistics. I said, this is what you need, this little graph right here. It's called the impact likelihood graph. It's a measure of risk. And here's what it says. There's an impact associated with getting hacked, losing data, downtime, disk crash, anything that could go wrong on a network, a server, an application, which is a lot. And this is where most people focus. When I see the typical, sales rep talking about disaster recovery or backup and recovery in their managed service program, or even if they do get into security or whatever, they're talking about impact. What if this goes down? What if you can't access that? What if you lose your data? But the thing they're not talking about most of the time is what's the likelihood that that will actually happen. So when you're talking to somebody who needs to make a financial decision, and I like to relate this, and in fact, in my training, I have this healthcare story I get into where I explain how this really looks, because security is a lot like healthcare, and I actually relate it to a heart attack incident, which I'm not going to go through all the details here today in this program. We don't have time, but here's the thing: if you were to have a heart attack today, the impact would be tremendous, right? It'd be life-threatening, and if you have a family, it could incapacitate you for the rest of your life, or if you had a stroke or something like that, you might not be able to walk or walk properly. There's a whole lot of things that could happen. But most of us who are sitting on this webinar today, and I'm in this boat because I ran 5 miles yesterday and did my workout program today, I'm not really thinking I'm on the verge of a heart attack, but I don't really know what the likelihood is. And that's true of all the business owners out there. Now, if you're in good shape, the likelihood of you having a heart attack is probably pretty low, and you probably don't really need to worry too much about it right this moment. But you and I know that the networks and the servers and the applications that are in these small businesses are poorly protected. And we also know that the power of the cybercrime organizations is big. And we also know that because what they do is automated, it's easy for them to get into those companies. Really easy. In fact, the iPhone was secure, and Apple refused to open up the phone. But, and I even wrote a blog post about this. Why does the FBI keep bugging Apple? Just break into it. Anybody can break into anything if they really want to. What's the likelihood that they'll get into the iPhone? Well, I was predicting it was 100%. And of course, news articles about a week ago agreed with me, right? They're in. The likelihood is high, and that's what the business owner needs to see. Now, in order to show that to them, and here's where I'm going to kind of pick up the speed here, because hopefully you know some of this, and if you don't, there's ways for us to get you this information. But I want to lead up to the big issue that made the conversion. So I started out by going through 7 trends that kind of hinge on some of the malware and the phishing attacks and the social engineering, kinds of attacks out there. They're fairly easy attacks. They're used all the time. Big companies like Target, JP Morgan, Home Depot were hit by them last year, and it was a pretty simple way to get in. Ransomware is just really the same technology as a bot, and of course these hospitals are getting hit and they're defenseless. So I got into the 7 things. First, I talked about the malware and the growth of that and the attack surface out there and how difficult it is to stop administrative people from clicking on links, from opening emails they shouldn't open up, from going to websites, especially at home. Their kids using their computers, peer-to-peer networks, all that stuff. There's no way to stop this. Issue number 2 I brought up was the fact that everyone's using their own stuff now, even if the company's against it, because we're all using our own phones, which means we're getting email, which means our data's on our phones. But here's the thing. It's developing a mindset. It's not about your own device. It's about a mindset that's being established. See, computers used to be really technical command line type, mainframe technology a long time ago. You didn't mess with stuff. You didn't put your own applications out there. The PC made it a little easier, but people still didn't do it because the cost of an application was big. But now that they have a phone and an app is either free or it's 99 cents or it's $2, if it's $5, you're going, wow, that's an expensive app. And there is no test process. If I need an app for something, I'm going to start a workout program. I need an app. I go to the app store. Oh, there's one. Click on it. Try that one. Oh, here's another one. Let me try that one too. Nobody's looking to see, is that a real app? Is that malware? What is that? Nobody knows. Or QR scan codes, at an event, who knows whose code that really is if somebody slapped a sticker on there. And so suddenly everybody thinks they can just do whatever they want because it's their computer and they're just used to doing it. It's user friendly. And it's creating huge, huge open doors. Number 3, social media, again, is a mindset problem. Everybody's been using social media for a while, but if you remember years ago, we were afraid to put anything online. Not anymore. Now anybody just about is sending around naked pictures of themselves, and we're talking about even ugly people do this. So think about this for a moment. If somebody who is like, well, I won't describe anybody, but maybe me, I don't know, sending pictures like that around, then what is private anymore? is the data in their company private? In fact, there was a Wall Street Journal article talking about a woman who friended people on Facebook in a financial company up in New York, and she got 73% of the men in that company to give her sensitive information from the financial systems of the company. 13% of them gave away passwords, gave her the passwords to the investment systems. Now, she was a white hat hacker who had been hired by the leadership of that company to test the integrity of those guys, and they failed. But who's going to pass a test like that? It's a really difficult thing. Issue number 4 is this false sense of security, the idea that passwords actually work, that the iPhone really is secure. It's not. People get into this stuff all the time. And even if the perimeter were secure, the insider threat is huge. People steal data. 75% admit it in the Wall Street Journal in an article that was published by them. The rest are lying, right? If somebody gets fired, they take their data with them. Then we have the state-sponsored stuff I talked about earlier and the cyber war that is coming. I mean, it's coming other places, but it's coming here too, you know? And it's going to happen. Wall Street Journal said within the next 10 years, expect a major cyber war attack. I don't know if I think it'll be sooner than that personally, but that's what they're saying. Expect this to happen. So 7 big issues that we're kind of defenseless against, but I want to show you the really one big issue. And I do want to mention here that compliance is a problem. Compliance is a problem because people think compliance is security, and business owners think, well, if I'm compliant, I'm okay. But the truth is that's not true. So nobody has this covered. And here's a soundbite you want to write down. It takes at least 14 months to know, on average, according to the FBI, that you've actually been infiltrated. So when a business owner says to me, well, I think we're okay, I don't see any problems, I'm like, well, okay, so today's day 1, 14 months from now, you'll figure out that actually you were under attack right now, and it will be too late, you'll be out of business. But you know what? Just that alone will not help close the deal. They got their wall up, their shield up, they don't see it, they're not sure, they don't want to spend the money. And so how did I convert them? I went into a little model I call the house in the cloud and the coverage model. So my book, The House in the Cloud, is built on this principle, and this is what converted them. So I had 1 hour to speak. I spent about the first 20 minutes going through some of those trends, and I said, you know, all that stuff's happening. We're kind of defenseless against it, but let me show you why security is failing and why it's going to fail for your company if you don't do something about it. It involves 3 questions, the house, the cloud, and the coverage model. And I'm going to skip the 3 questions for right now, because we don't have time, but I want to get into the core of it here. I started out by, remember, these are business people. They're not thinking about servers and networks. And I'm telling them there's stuff in your company that is going to be stolen. You're going to be compromised. And let me show you why. And so I brought up, let's forget about technology. Let's look at your home for a moment. And think about, you know, are you safe? Do you feel safe when you're at home, when you're going to bed at night, or if you're traveling and your family's at home? Do you feel safe? And, you know, truth is, most of us do. Well, why is that? How does security actually work? How is it that a home is fairly secure? And it is. You know, the instance of people breaking in, it's pretty good. So here's how it works. If we look at what protects a home, you've got stuff in your home that you've spent money on. Maybe you have an alarm. You know, if you live way out in the country, maybe you don't. If you live closer to the city, you probably do. Mine's hooked up to ADT, and they're monitoring 7x24. You know, maybe you have some video surveillance now. That's, you know, pretty popular thing. You might have some dogs outside. I got 2 ferocious German Shepherds roaming my property right now. They stay outside all the time. So if anybody comes, including the mailman, comes to our house, they surround the car, and we actually have to go out and get our mail. It's kind of crazy, but you know, but they're out there. They're defending the property. You know, we have firearms. That's why I live in the country here in North Carolina, so we can all carry. I got 7 kids. They're all armed. You know, my wife is a expert shot with a crossbow. She hunts out the window. You know. Anyway, so you got all this crazy stuff going on. But here's what you have. You got doors, windows, locks, a fence, alarms, motion detection. Maybe you have Crime Watch, which doesn't really work. The police might show up, but it takes them a while. So maybe you have some other things in place. So, but here's the thing. These 12 things are pretty standard, having conducted this same discussion with thousands of people all over the world, literally. This is what they come up with. But you know what? This is not what secures the house. It's actually a system. And when I started laying this out, you could see the people kind of tuning in, the business owners. Okay, see, they're catching this because they have a house. And a lot of these business owners live in pretty nice houses. And they're saying, okay, how do we protect our home? It's not these things. Well, what is it? And of course, Matthew Dixon in the Challenger customer book says, your client has to be wrong if you're going to advise them. And here's where they're wrong. It's not these 12 things. It's a system. It's a system of 3 components: protection, detection, response. You need all 3 columns. You don't need all 12 pieces, but you do need something in every one of these columns. Depending on how much security you need, you're going to beef up different areas. But one of these is the most important column, and it needs to be finely tuned, nearly perfect. The other 2 are critical, and the time sequence from left to right is a must. So in other words, there must be a level of protection. If it's violated, there must be a way to detect them. If they detected, there must be a timely response. And in the computer world, that response must be instantaneous, real time. Okay, so then I asked them, because again, remember, they need to be wrong. We already established the fact that they are now looking at that list and they're wrong about that. So the next question is, which column is most important? And I'll tell you what, 90% of the time, it's column 1. That's what people pick. 90% of the time, they pick column 1. But it's not column 1, it's column 2. You cannot keep people out, reference the Apple iPhone. You can only detect them faster and faster and faster, but you must have a timed response plan right behind it. And I could prove that all to you, but I don't really have time today to do that. But in my training, I do prove it. And in my book, I do prove it. And I show you how I prove it to business owners, because I want them at this moment to feel kind of naked, like they're sitting there thinking, wow, we put all our, security in passwords and stuff like that, and it doesn't work. Passwords, firewalls, and encryption. Now, when I say firewall, I'm talking about traditional firewall technologies. A lot of stuff built in some of the newer UTM firewalls, and we're going to talk a little bit about that with Ryan, and we're hoping that Tracy Hickox will also be able to join us in this process and just get some give and take with him during the interview process, because they've built some things here that are going to help us. But these 3 things alone do not keep people out. There must be a way to detect them. And because we don't have that in just about any small business, we've got thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of systems being compromised every single day by malware, which we call zombies. We have a $1 trillion resale industry out there. This is what security needs to look like: protection, detection, response, with an emphasis on detection, response being the second most important, protection being, well built across administrative, technical, and physical areas within the company. And that requires technology, people, training, as well as physical infrastructure that all work together in a synergistic way to create security. And so when we're out there assessing, we're looking to build that impact likelihood graph so that we can show them, here's the likelihood based on the way you're built to make that happen. And most of the time in that education process, in fact, 90 to 100% of the time over the last 12 months, people have said, wow, that's scary. And so we've said, well, let us take a look. It won't take long. We just need to do a few little things. They're really simple. We're just going to drop a box on there, collect some data, ask you a few questions, and within a half a day or so of some questioning and about a week's worth of data collection, we can tell you if there are evidences in your business that are going to put you out of business. Okay? Now, we're going to come to a close here, and we're going to get involved in a little interview process here. And what I want to do is just take 2 or 3 minutes to give you some information about the training class, because that's a key piece of this. So let me come back to you here on video, okay? And we're going to move into the interview process with Ryan in just a moment. We have just a couple of key questions or things I want to give you about the training program. So I mentioned that Checkpoint and Ingram Micro have agreed to sponsor that. They sponsored this program, and they're willing to sponsor 10 classes in the training process. So on your right-hand column, I'm going to pop up a button here that allows you, let me just get this up here, that allows you to actually just click on this is all you have to do. Just click on the button. It asks you for your name and your email address. Put that in there, and that gets you on the list. Now, there's way too many people on today's call for every single person to get a class. So get in there quick is what I'm saying, okay? So we only got 10 to give away. So get in there quickly so that you can grab one of those classes. And then Checkpoint's going to take the list and they'll create the invitation and get that out to you so you can get into the class. Let me tell you how the class works quickly. Okay, so it's recorded. There's video and audio. Some of it, a lot of it can be streamed actually on your phone, so you can listen to it in your car or whatever it is. And it actually spans, although it's not very time consuming, but it spans a 3-month period. Okay, what we're trying to do here is transform, not just give you like a dump truck full of information and say, change your life without the details. So over a 3-month period, every week there's some things to do, but there's things that you do in the course of your business. So when you're making calls, we give you information on how to make those calls. And when you're trying to convert people into a more in-depth educational meeting, we show you how to do that. And when you're trying to move them into the assessment process, we show you how to do that. And when you're trying to convert them into the managed service program, we show you how to do that. And in between, there are some coaching calls, which I personally conduct. And so you get a notice once a month. So over the 3 months, you get 3 coaching calls, 1 per month, to help you dial right into the places where you're having the biggest struggle. So if you're trying to build out a new territory and you just need new clients, that's where we're going to work. If you have plenty of meetings, but they're not converting, or your sales cycles are 6 to 9 months, which nobody can live on, then we're going to show you how to do that. Okay, so it's a well-structured program. There's a workbook that follows all this stuff, and there's a lot of content in there that's going to help you build your program. So anyway, so make sure you hit the button, and that will get you started there. And Ryan, are you? I see you have your non-photo picture up there. I'm just wondering if you're with us there.
Yep, I'm back.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna get ready to roll into the interview process at this point, and that piece of our program will take us about 45 minutes. And then again, if you have questions along the way or on stuff I've already covered, you can chat those into your question and answer thing, and they'll show up on our thing here. Okay. So all right, good. So anyway, so I was just looking at some of the comments that came in here, so I understand that we recovered from our audio and stuff, and thank you for those comments on the presentation and so forth. So this will give you a little bit more detail as we go into this. So Ryan, are we ready to roll into some interview stuff here?
Yeah, I think we are. Great presentation, Dave. And do you want me to roll with my set of questions for you first?
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. Go ahead.
Great. I just want to start off with a very simple question here. Why are companies having such a hard time finding net new business?
Well, I think it's a couple of reasons. First of all, it's not easy to find good salespeople. So a lot of people have said that. However, it's not all about the salespeople. It's really about the process. We're using an old, outdated process out there, first of all. So what that means is we have very little marketing science built into what we're doing. So if you're a salesperson on this phone and you've not been making your number, I want to tell you, it's probably not you. If you're working hard at this, it's probably a matter of injecting some of these principles of the science of marketing that compels people to move into your education session. Second thing is, if you're going to market with your traditional presentation about your company, I'm here to tell you that nobody cares about your presentation. They have needs. They're trying to build their business. And so what we're presenting, what I was just presenting a moment ago, is when I go in there with a known need, these people need security, I know it, and I can explain to them in concrete terminology. I can show them exactly why their clients don't think they need security, the fact that they do need security, and how to get them to believe they need security. I can create a conversion. And I need to know what to convert them to, which is the other step that we want to take them through in that training, is how to get into that assessment, because I need to build that impact likelihood graph. And I'll tell you what, we're closing deals where we presented the material, went in, did the assessment within a half a day, collected a little bit of data, put together a very short report, 3 to 5 pages at the most, and converted from there in one single day. We're talking about a very short sales cycle that goes right into services, product, and managed services.
Great. Okay. What type of threats are your reseller clients dealing with, and how are you helping them deal with those threats that they tell you about?
Okay, so it's important to know what the threats are, right? You can't just go in and say everybody's under attack, because, well, everybody is, but if you're not specific about the kinds of attacks. So when I look at the small business market specifically, first of all, a big one is ransomware. So a lot of my clients are telling me that they have clients that are getting hit, or prospects even, that they're hearing about instances at least every month of somebody getting hit with ransomware. So that tells me, and the growth pattern tells me, it's just a matter of time before anybody that's not protected gets hit by ransomware. So that's one issue that's in the news enough that it's easy to justify. Secondly is, when you go out and do an assessment, you really should be looking for malware, for bots, not viruses, bots. And you don't want to use that word, by the way. Bots is not a good term. You want to be using things like, you want to explain to a business owner the threat. Okay, so here's how I do it, right? I was actually in a training class, and I was talking about the importance of finding urgent things. And one of the SEs said to me, well, what's urgent? So I said, well, a bot is urgent. And he said, and he looked at me, kind of like funny look, and he said to me, well, that's not really that urgent. And I said, okay, well, let's test that. So the president of their company happens to be sitting over here to my left. And I said to him, his name was Mike. And I said, so Mike, if you're a small business owner, right? And he nods. And I said, so if I came to you and I told you that somebody who doesn't work here has installed software on your laptop, which he had sitting right in front of him, and that software enables them, and they live in China or Russia or somewhere else that you don't really, that you think might be somebody that you wouldn't want in your computer, and they can capture your passwords, they can see you through the little camera on your computer, and by the way, they can turn the green light off so you don't know they're looking at you. They can listen to you on their microphone, they can capture your passwords to your online banking account, they can read your email. Not only that, they can send email from you to anybody they want to and say whatever they want from you, and they'll think it's from you. Would that be urgent? and Mike was like, yeah, I'd want that fixed right now. Like I wouldn't want to wait a week to get a proposal in the mail. I would want it right now. So that's urgent. That's a big threat. So those are the two biggies. But we also find a lot of low-hanging fruit while we're looking for those things. Like, backups don't really work. I think the instance of backup failure in the SMB market is over 77%, last statistic I heard. So just simple stuff that is part of managed services, but that's not the place to lead. Lead with the malware stuff, the loss of intellectual capital, things like that. Those are really the big threats right now.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave. And I believe Tracy just joined the call as well now.
I am. I'm here.
All right, Tracy. Are we gonna see you, or just?
No, I don't think you're going to be able to see my ugly mug today. I'm a little worried about bandwidth here in the hotel. So
that little blue man you have on the screen, though, is it's a pretty handsome icon.
Yeah, I think he's a better rendition than me personally, but it's just me.
Okay. All right. Good. So we're just really just into question 2 of the interview here, I think.
Yeah.
However you guys want to proceed here.
Yeah. No, that's great. So during the presentation you did a minute ago, you talked a little bit about some of the threats that are out there. What are you seeing from your customers? What kind of threats are attacking SMB customers?
Yeah, so actually, right before you joined, Ryan had asked that question. I was talking about the ransomware and the malware, and
okay, sorry.
Yeah, so we hit that just a moment ago.
Okay, well, so you're hearing about those types of malware, but one of the problems out there is I think a lot of customers don't perceive, or resellers even don't perceive, that there's an ROI around security. How do you get the attention of the customer using the techniques that you just talked about? Kind of take us to the next level on that. How can partners be successful in getting the attention of their customers?
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned ROI, because it's an old sales strategy to talk ROI, right? Everybody mentions ROI, but there really isn't an ROI with security. And when I hear people, it's usually salespeople on the security side that claim that they've come up with some new terminology like return on something else, and I'm like, business owners, that they're not gonna buy that. They're sitting there with their spreadsheet, their cash flow, their income statement, their operational expenses, and when I say there's a return on something, they're looking down at the numbers and they're going, well, the bottom line is, I don't have the budget for this. So really what I need is I have to go back to the healthcare issue. If you have cancer, you're not going to wait for you to have money. You're going to reallocate. If you're having a heart attack or a stroke, you're going to reallocate. And if somebody is actually getting into your data, or there's like a 90% likelihood that they're going to any moment, you need to take care of it. This is not a budget issue or an ROI issue. This is a save my business issue, and it's urgent. So what salespeople really need to do, first of all, is to get a business owner to understand that it really is likely, not 100% likely, but it's just very likely enough that you should let me take a look. So, for instance, if you lived in a war zone and there was radioactive fallout from some kind of nuclear explosion, hopefully that won't happen to any of us, there would be a high probability that you could come down with cancer. There just would be. And so if I were a doctor and I were traveling into that area of that country, and I had some kind of kit with me, and I said, you need to be tested for radiation poisoning and possible effects of cancer, and there's a way to fix it if I discover it, but the likelihood is so high that everybody ought to just get in line. And by the way, I'm gonna do this for free. Like, it's not going to cost you anything except a few minutes. Are you willing to do that? And that's what we're doing in these lunch and learns. We're not charging for the assessment. We're getting them to give us the opportunity to run the test, and we don't spend a lot of time on the test, but it's pretty conclusive. We pop something on there, collect some traffic, and boom, we have evidence, and we can show them. I'd say 80 or 90% of the time, we can actually show them stuff that looks malicious. Now, we haven't done all the tests like you would with cancer and heart and stuff like that, but you've got the symptoms, kind of that initial test that says, there's some things that don't look right. You really ought to spend more money on deeper tests, if anybody's been through that. You know what I'm talking about. Or in the security world, a lot of times you can say, you could spend a lot of money diagnosing this, or because it doesn't require medication, it just requires a little bit of change in the way you're managing things, it's almost cheaper just to fix the problem, and that way you don't have to worry about it anymore. So let's fix the problem. And I'm finding that the close rate on that sale, once they've seen the impact likelihood graph and seen the evidence of the types of data and stuff like that we're collecting, it's pretty conclusive. They're ready to do something. It's pretty quick.
So one of the things I was thinking about, Dave, when you were going through that is to me, security is a great way for sales reps to have better conversations with their customers, more meaningful. You were talking about, what would happen if the business went down. If the business got hacked and let's say they had online transactions were a big part of their revenue stream. If anybody turned that tap off, you're going to get the president's attention pretty quick. Doesn't security lend itself really well to having those kind of meaningful conversations instead of what are the key projects you have this month and the typical stuff that salespeople ask?
Yes, I hate that question. That brings me back to Solution Selling 1995, which was good, by the way. If you read Solution Selling, Michael Bosworth, he had the 9-box matrix. But recently, I interviewed a guy who actually is he's a client. He's a CISO of a company, and he was talking about the sales process. And I asked him, what do you hate about salespeople in an interview? And it was really telling. He was a great guy. He didn't he answered it in a way of not being demeaning. He wasn't down on salespeople. He just said, I get 30 or 40 people calling me every single week that want to sell me something, and the thing is, they all want to show me their presentation and ask me what projects I got going on. And he said, the truth is, I don't need to answer that question 40 or 50 times a week, and I'm not necessarily looking for anybody. But then I said to him, but you must need outside help. You must need advisors, and as things are changing and going on. And he said, oh yeah, I do. So I said, well, who will you listen to? And he said, when somebody calls me up and says they want to come in and tell me about their company, I'm like, I don't have time for that, right? They're going to tell me what? Their company name, certifications they have, what products they sell. It's a waste of time. But somebody calls me up and says, there's a change in something, or I understand you're involved in a cloud migration project, and there's some things that we've done some research on that show exactly what needs to happen on the security side. We'd like to show you how that all works. Or there's changes in the PCI regulations that we've been, working with over some period of time, and we want to show you how to take care of that in your company and make sure you're okay. And he said those kind of conversations are advisory. That's why that box in the conversion chart is the education box, right? They're coming in not to talk about a company, but to educate. And then, if they've said something profound, or what Matthew Dixon calls giving me real insights, then I want to know, what company are you with? You know, and now it all comes together. Okay, so you're with this company, great, you can do this. How much does that cost? And we're ready to do business. So security is that.
You talked before about the assessments as well. You know, one of the goals, and certainly the goal of the Lunch and Learn, is to convert that customer into an assessment. And you talked about, you know, how effective you were in doing that. Tell me about the assessment and how that leads into that value conversation.
Okay, so the assessment is in the middle of the conversion chart, and that's a key piece. So there's a couple of details that you know, I didn't have time in the training, but this is a good time to answer it. Most assessments are going in like with a scanner, and you know, collecting IP addresses, looking for missing patches, stuff like that. And when you show up with that report to a business owner and say, you know, you're missing patches, your ports are open, you know, ports, you know, what's that? In the Midwest, that's like wine, and on the coast, you know, that's a seaport. And there, you know, there's no real connection like, oh, that sounds important. You know, they're kind of bored by it. But if I'm looking for things like malicious activity, and in fact, I wanted to throw that back at you because I know the 700 appliance actually has the capability to detect a lot of that stuff, and it would be helpful if the resellers that are listening in here today understood that you can actually take that box and put it on someone's network as an eval or whatever you want to call it, but I would call it not an eval, an assessment. You know, we're going to assess. By the way, we're going to use this little appliance here, pop it on, and it's going to tell us what's going on. Can you just take a moment and explore that with us?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. Thanks for asking about it. So we do two levels of these assessments based on the size of the customer and you know, frankly, the complexity of the network. And for most mid-market customers, the 700 series is a great platform for doing that, and it's very non-intrusive for the customer. All you need to do is connect to the whatever CPE they have, connecting them to the internet. So grab a port off their router or their whatever they're connecting with, and then grab a connection to their local network and put the gateway in what we call bridge mode. So it doesn't enforce any rules, it doesn't do anything, but it picks up all of the traffic that's both coming in and going back out through the internet connection, as well as any traffic that's happening on the LAN. So it'll actually capture all of those packets, do the deep packet inspection, and the reseller or the service provider is able to show a chart back to the customer that shows these are the key applications that are running on your network. These are your power users. By the way, did you know that Joe spent 6 hours on BitTorrent, you know, and was tying up 90% of the bandwidth for about an hour period? You know, that sort of insight, you know, just to what you talked about a minute ago, that's real insight to somebody who's concerned about what's going on with their network. You know, why does Sally spend 4 hours a day on Facebook? You know, Facebook's not part of her job, and yet, you know, she's connected to the application for that length of time. So those, along with, as you talked about, the malware that can be there, and you know, maybe even pick up a bot that's established a command and control session. You can actually see that live in the reporting. So it's a great opportunity for partners to go in very inexpensively and very unobtrusively to the business and show them what's happening in their network.
Okay, so if I heard what you just said, so if there is a bot, one of those software programs, right, is sitting on somebody's computer in there, chances are you're going to find that. Or if there's ransomware that hasn't yet affected, like the Apple ransomware was a 3-day thing, right? It landed, 3 days later, it encrypted. If we were doing the assessment, we would find it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you just keep the gateway up to date with a connection to our threat cloud, and that threat cloud provides an instantaneous update of anything that we find around the world. Any type of malware that's found and a signature created for it is provided to the gateway on a real-time basis.
Okay, so when you ask the question, you know, how does the assessment convert? That's the key, right? There's two pieces in my training program that I go through. One is you've got to establish rapport and get people in the organization realizing how important this is. So there's an interview process that I recommend people go through. It's not lengthy, but you're spending time with asset owners, people with liability, and you're talking to them about the kinds of data that are critical to the business, and it just kind of builds that up in their mind, so they're now thinking about their assets, their critical information. And then I'm saying, now we want to put this box on your network because we can collect evidences of actual threats against that data. So now that they're thinking about their important data, and I'm saying, I'm going to collect some data over a couple of days, and we will know whether or not your stuff is actually under attack. And without doing this, you'll never know. And when they, now it's obvious. It's like, okay, I'm alert, I'm aware, the house in the cloud, I'm scared, put the box on, collect data. Now I have real evidence, concrete evidence. It's no longer FUD. Now it's real. I put that into a very short report, and I can add some things, which you mentioned, about some of the time that's also being used. I don't just have to focus on bots. I can also say, by the way,
Right.
these people are screwing around. These people are, gaming. These people are, whatever they're doing. This guy's running his own business on your network. I had a guy actually find that out on an assessment last week. Kind of interesting. Running his own business inside somebody else's company. So, so when a business owner sees that, it's pretty hard to say, well, we don't have budget. I mean, you got to do something, right?
Yeah. So did you talk earlier about how to convert this into a business for the partner? One of the things I'm sure that everybody on the call is feeling is that the margins have evaporated for the traditional resale business and even the traditional managed service business. I know you talk about that. What's the next step for the partners that are listening here?
Yeah, no, so we didn't actually. So most people have a managed service program in place, and I am not saying to dissolve that. What I'm saying is that there's another level on top of that I think defeats the competition. So I want to give an example. I was working with a reseller last week on the West Coast, and they've had a number of managed service deals come to them, and usually it comes to them like this. Company A over here is dissatisfied with their managed service company provider, and so they're going out with an RFP to get a new provider. So they go out to 4 or 5 different companies, and my client is one of them. And it's typical RFP stuff like, patching, Microsoft management, blah, 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 blah. So everyone's going to show up with the same proposal, and the qualifier is going to be price. And nobody wants to, my client doesn't, I don't want my client to win on price. Some guy working out of his garage is going to win on price. So I said, you ought to go back to them and say, and tell them, anybody can do this. Some guy out of his garage could do this. However, what's really important is the security aspect. And so what we need to do is we need to take a look at your security, which leads into the assessment, and which leads me to the question you really posed here, which is, well, now how is this company can provide all that security? So they need to have an MSSP offering, but right away you're thinking, okay, does that mean I have to build a SOC? Does that need? And the truth is, there's a number of things that I can add here to my company that I don't actually have to buy. So you mentioned the threat cloud, for instance. So if I put your box in, right, that's going to be connected to some intelligence that I don't have to purchase, right?
That's absolutely right.
And I understand there's some other pieces to the checkpoint puzzle that can help me in case of attacks and things like that. It might be helpful actually if you just lay out a couple of those pieces.
That leads me into one of the things I wanted to talk about that I hear all the time from a lot of partners is they're concerned about presenting a security offering because they're concerned about maybe the liability. If their customer gets hacked, are they then responsible? They're worried about, well, what do I do if my customer does get hacked? They're going to come to me and expect me to be able to help them fix it, and so on. And that leads to one of the main differentiators of Checkpoint. We have a team called the Computer Incident Response Team. And what that team does is they can be called in when a customer is under attack, really real time, from that perspective. Their whole job in life is to understand a threat is happening, an attack is happening on a company. They'll investigate what's happening and be able to provide some suggestions right off the bat. And we actually do that at no charge. And you think, well, that's kind of silly. Why would you? You're a business for profit. Why would you do that for no charge? Well, the truth is there's no better time to gain real-time intelligence of what's happening than during an attack. So we're able to put monitors on, capture the real-time traffic, and understand literally what's going on. So it's of tremendous value to us to capture that data. And in return, we essentially help the customer try to figure out what they can do. So partners that are partners of Checkpoint have that capability. We kind of stand behind you from that perspective.
Okay, so you mentioned an interesting thing there that I want to just highlight, the idea of intelligence. So when we go back to how does a company actually build this, there's a couple of pieces that have to be in play. One is you need to be able to sell it. So it doesn't just sell, because I can tell you right now, small business owners don't want to spend extra money on some kind of management program. So I need a way to get their attention, and I need a way to convince them that there really is an issue. And what you're selling is not firewall management, it is security intelligence. And if you're listening to this today, you need to write that down. This is a differentiator. This is what the big companies like, Dell SecureWorks that are selling to Visa and Bank of America, that's the messaging that they're using. Security intelligence, insight into what's actually happening on your network right now as you work, create with data and start to interact with customers and all that sort of stuff. So you need to know how to sell it. Your value proposition of what you're selling is intelligence, and then you need technology that can actually provide that detection response piece. And of course, that's not all technology. It's technology that detects, and then it's technology that responds automatically, but you also need intelligence behind that, so like the team that you can call on that really understands when things really get bad. So now you have the whole package. And of course, a reseller could build whatever pieces they want to, but a smaller reseller should not, make the $1 million investment into all that stuff when they can get it third party. They should be the selling arm and the feet on the street local. But when there's something really, really bad that requires what Mike McConnell in the Wall Street Journal called the tradecraft, the people who are watching big security issues all over the world, 7x24, and really know what an attack looks like. You can't. No small business can afford to hire that. No reseller can staff that. And so you've got to have somebody behind you. Exactly what you're talking about. So right there, I think to me, it's an easy transition for any company that has an MSP business to learn how to sell the security piece, learn the educational message, learn how to conduct the assessment, use the 700 tools along with the process I've laid out in the interview process to collect the data, build the impact likelihood, start to put the intelligent technology in place, connected to the back end where it's being watched, and you really essentially have a total solution.
No, that's right. But so I like the idea of doing that. And what I'm concerned about, though, is my startup cost. I'm concerned about that if I'm going to go build the security practice, don't these people cost a lot of money? A person that really is going to understand what to do. So I've got to worry about that. What about the infrastructure I have to buy to get my project or get my practice off the ground?
Well, I think a lot of that infrastructure today can be outsourced, third party, right? So Checkpoint can help with that. There are some other platforms out there that can build in and be next to that, adjacent type technologies out there. So I'm recommending that people leverage those kinds of things rather than building it all. Now you do need some of your technology people to beef up some of their security understanding. So you should start to think, well, you need to learn how to sell it. That's the first thing. There's no reason to spend $1 million on technology if you're not going to sell it. So learn how to sell it. You probably want to get some of your technical people up to speed on technology, but remember, they won't be experts because they're not doing it every single day, meaning that they're not responding to issues all day. That's where you do need to call on somebody third party that's going to be able to take care of those really big incidents. So when you get into forensics, for instance, stuff like that, they can't. They shouldn't do that. They should third party that.
No, that's right. So did you talk about some of your partners, some of your customers that have made that transition? I know you talked at the beginning about Delon and some of the other guys. Can you take us through kind of what's that look like for folks that are listening here that hopefully are starting to become intrigued that maybe I ought to do this? Can you take us through maybe a success story? What one of your companies did?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, several have. First of all, the big hurdle for me when I'm working with a reseller is I'm looking at how many new companies are coming in, how many new clients they're actually pulling on, and how many calls they're making to get meetings and what that conversion looks like. And usually it's low. And so when I suggest that, if it were me and my reseller business, and I did this, back in the 90s, I would focus on security. I wouldn't get rid of my MSP, but I would actually change my website and change my marketing literature and change my initial connection with new clients to a very security-focused message. And when resellers hear that, a lot of times they kind of taken aback and they're like, well, I don't want to dissolve my market out there by becoming too narrow. And I always say to them, who makes more money? The eye doctor or the general practitioner? And it's obvious, right? The general practitioner is not the wealthy guy. It's the eye surgeon. It's the heart surgeon. It's the person who is very specific and is an expert in that thing that's urgent, that has urgency in it. And we need to think that way, right? If I become an expert in talking about security and in bringing that security, I can bring all the other stuff. The other thing is, the second thing I mentioned to them is, the reason the general practitioner doesn't make tons of money, I mean, they make good money, but not compared to the surgeon. The reason that they make less money is because, I don't want to say this too brashly, but they don't really know a whole lot. I have 7 kids. We've had some, sicknesses in our family. One gets sick and they all get sick. But the truth is, the general practitioner generally knows what's going around, right? Oh, I've seen this symptom before. Yeah, we just give them this antibiotic or whatever. That's pretty much it. But if you go to something serious, they will not give you a diagnosis. They'll always refer you to a specialist, because the truth is they don't know. So what I'm telling you is that security is an urgent issue that I believe you can bank on 99% of the people that you talk to this week. If you make any calls, whether you bring it up or not, 99% of those people have an urgent security issue in their computing area right now, and they don't know it. But you know it. And so by focusing in on that, what you need is a way to get them thinking about it. So let me give you an example. I was working with a guy in Florida. I've been working with him for quite a while. And when I shared this with him, he was focused still on providing phone solutions with companies. I didn't have a lot of business going on because phone systems have commoditized and have been for a while, right? 2000 was the year of voice over IP. And things heated up for a while, but, and if you have managed phone contracts, they're profitable. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying there's no unique value proposition. If I call people up and say, hey, we sell voice over IP systems, so does Time Warner Cable, I mean, or you can use Google Hangouts now. You don't even need phone. I don't know. So working with this guy, when I shared this with him, he said, okay, we want to do this. So the first thing is to take a look at your initial offering. What do you have right now? The kinds of clients you have. He's calling on small business, and he had a lot of medical in his spectrum there. I said, don't worry about HIPAA compliance because that's complicated. We'll get there someday, but right now, forget about that. And let's take a look at what you actually offer them. Well, he was doing patching. He had antivirus. That's a security thing. Backup and recovery. That's a security thing, even though they're both commodities. He's doing system administration. He's monitoring the systems. He provides on-site support. He's got an email product that he can sell them, hosted email, and he's got a version that's secure. Okay, so he's got a few pieces that are already security, kind of. But then I said, okay, what's important in the security world is detection response. So what are you doing, like, for instance, for firewall technology or SIM technology or something like that? And so he told me what he's doing, and what they were doing is checking the rules once a quarter. So that's not detection response, that's firewall management, and that's necessary. But we need detection response. So we need to make some technology changes for him right there. And I said, okay, well, let's look at some different technologies that you can get into. And by the way, you don't have to resell the technology to your existing clients. You can simply go in there, perform an assessment, and we're going to build that process for you, and it's not hard. And what you're going to do is you're just going to include this technology as part of your service. So don't sell them a new firewall, for instance. Instead, just include it in your service. It's hardware as a service. And that's what he did. So then we started looking at some different marketing things. He put some salespeople through my training program so they could learn how to message. We actually set up a lunch and learn, and we actually did 2 back-to-back, both healthcare-oriented. And he actually wrote a very nice several-paragraph testimony on my blog, davidstelzel.com, where he explains that we had over 60 people, close to 70 people in both events, medical, high conversion rate, and tons of business came out of it. And he says in there, I was having conversations, it was fun again, he says. I was having conversations that were business-oriented, they were critical stuff. I wasn't just trying to sell them another box that they didn't really need, and they were thankful. They were like eating it up. So he went through that process, made a few technology changes, integrated into his offering, changed his sales process, and then he actually went out and changed his website and his marketing pieces so that they would reflect that he was really very focused on security. But he still sells phone and managed service and a lot. He just doesn't lead with it. Gets in with it with security, fixes them, starts monitoring them, and then brings in all the other stuff because nobody needs two managed service providers. So that stuff just gets added in. And I tell you what, it created immediate growth, and it's not hard.
That's a great process. Let's maybe switch gears a little now and talk about that technology. You want to bring up the quick overview we have of the checkpoint technology?
Yes, let me do that. Okay, can you see that?
I can.
All right.
So, folks, like David talked about, providing the security. You know, I think there's multiple benefits for you as a business to provide security to your customers. You know, to me, the most important thing is you've probably built your business by having loyal customers that trust you, and trust you to bring them information that helps them maintain the continuity of their business. So, you know, to me, it's almost like it's almost a requirement that you protect those customers from getting attacked from the ransomware that's out there, and so on. So you're providing protection for your customers as they go on about and do their business. As we talked about a minute ago, you also give them visibility on what's going on in their network. So anything from application usage to the number of which individuals are using which applications and where they're spending their time and so on. So you've got the capability to provide that full reporting, and then also most importantly to be able to access the data from whatever device you're on. So being able to maintain the productivity of the company. You know, businesses are mobile now. People are doing work everywhere. They're doing work while they're at a coffee shop. They're doing work at home. They're doing work everywhere, and especially small and medium businesses. Most of that computing really is taking place outside of the four walls on multiple types of devices. You can go to the next slide. So what we've brought out, and the reason we invited you to this webinar to talk about adding security, is we've now, I think, changed the game with security for small business customers, small and medium business customers. So what you see on the screen there are some of the different technologies that are baked into the new 700 series gateway. It really is enterprise quality security. So if you look at some of those technologies on there, the antivirus, anti-spam, anti-bot, some of those software elements that make up the security, those are the same engines that run on our much more expensive enterprise platforms. So we're able to take that technology and bring it down into a very, very affordable device, and really that's the differentiator for Checkpoint. You notice in the middle on the left there's a graphic that says Sandblast. So what Sandblast is that's a sandboxing technology, a threat emulation type technology. We've been very successful selling that in the enterprise. However, it's very expensive. So a traditional sandbox type appliance from, you know, even a Palo Alto or a FireEye or a Checkpoint and whatever can cost $20,000 to $30,000 at a minimum, and go up from there. Obviously, well out of the range of what a small medium business can afford. We're able to bring that same technology into the 700 by outsourcing the analysis part to our cloud and provide a very, very robust solution, and that'll be coming out in the second half of this year. So you can go to the next slide. So we talked a little bit about you being the security provider for your customer. So the most important thing is to be able to manage, to be able to deploy the devices and then manage them, and be able to do it with the staff you have, not have to go out and hire a security expert who's familiar with enterprise type platforms. So we've built a scalable management platform. You can see up to 10,000 gateways on one instance, if you will. Flexible in a sense it's available as a cloud service, so you don't need to buy anything other than the license to connect your customers' gateways. Don't need to dedicate any equipment in your data center or worry about the uptime or anything like that. Or if you want to, you can buy the software and run it on your own server. So you've got the choice there, and the pricing's about the same either way. So you've got a choice. And then finally, many of the tasks that are kind of routine, like Dave mentioned, firewall maintenance and so on, many of the tasks are automated. So we've got a system called Zero Touch Deployment, where you can send the gateway out to the customer, get them to connect it to the internet and connect it to their LAN, turn it on, and you would be able to automatically see it from the management platform. So you don't have to go visit the customer. Other intense tasks that I hear some partners struggle with are doing updates, doing software updates and security updates. They have to go contact each device individually and push an update to it and reboot the machine and all kinds of theatrics to get to keep the gateways up to speed. With Checkpoint, that's done automatically. So if the gateways are connected to the management system, they automatically get the downloads from our threat cloud. You can go to the next. So here's a screenshot of the security management portal. That's that management system we just talked about. So it gives you the detailed reporting. The graphics a little bit hard to see on the screen here, but we can certainly get you some collateral that'll help articulate that a little bit better. But you've got the threat information, you've got the usage information, you've got all of that presented, and by the way, fully customizable. So you can put your logo on the report, so it looks like you as the partner are creating it, and it's unique to your business. Go to the next slide. So again, on the 700, we really feel like it's enterprise-grade security at very aggressive price points. And one of the key things is being able to provide that security at the performance level the customer expects. So one of the big challenges for security gateways for small, medium business customers over the last 4 or 5 years or even longer, and Checkpoint was no exception, was the performance of the platform. You know, this thing is in line between the internet and the users. So any drop in performance is going to be seen by the users, and they're going to complain. And so what partners and customers have traditionally done in the past is then turn off some of the security features to improve the performance. Well, you're kind of defeating the purpose of putting the security gateway out there if you turn off the IPS and you turn off the URL filtering and so on. Then you've defeated the purpose of putting the box there. And unfortunately, that's the condition that a lot of low-cost security gateways are in out there with customers today. We were able to come out with a very innovative hardware design, a super fast dual-core Intel processor that can handle up to 100 meg line speed and up to 200 meg line speed with the 2 different models, and still provide all of the security features that you see. So go to the next slide. So you can see the product lineup here. Hopefully that's visible on the screen. So you can see very aggressive price points. The 730 goes out the door for $499. Now you do need to add threat prevention to that and add support to it. So we recommend that you buy the 1 or the 3-year bundle. So we've made it very easy for you as a partner. You don't have to worry about complicated licensing or anything like that. There's one part number that provides the appliance, gives you the license, and gives you the support for either a 1-year or a 3-year period. You also see you've got Wi-Fi options. So some customers don't want to have Wi-Fi in their security gateway. You might not want to do that. You may have a different Wi-Fi system set up based on the size of the company and so on. So you can buy them in wired or wireless versions.
And that's the last slide, right? Or is that?
Yeah, I think it is. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I think we're up. I have feedback from someone over there. So I don't know if that's Tracy or Ryan, but one of you has your speaker turned on and it's feeding back. All right, I think it's gone. So what we want to do now is we want to move into some Q&A, and so you should have your you should have your oh, we're back here with the feedback.
Yeah, that's me. Let me see if I can fix it.
Okay. Anyway, so if you have questions, now would be the time to chat those on here. And live video is not on. We missed all the slides. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so is that true? Nobody else could see the slides because we just have a few people chat and tell us that you couldn't see the not displayed. Oh. Yeah, that's odd.
I saw it, Dave, so I'm not sure what happened there.
Huh. Okay. Well, we had only 2 people said they couldn't see it. Are there other people? So, yep. Let's see. Well, that's kind of weird. There's like 3 people. 4. Yeah. Well, I don't know why you could see it. The slides were minimized. Okay, interesting. Okay. Well, we'll assume that what we can do is we can email out the slide deck to everyone, and that would be fine. Is that okay? We do that, Tracy?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. No problem.
Okay, just send the slides, a couple people said. So, yep, all right, that's what we'll do. We'll make a note here to get the slides out, and then, of course, if you have questions, now is the time to pose some questions. And lots of people said, yes, email us the deck. So, we got that message. We're going to email you the deck. All right. Okay. Very good. All right, well, let's look at questions here then we have. And what do we have in terms of questions?
Looks like we've got a question from David. Can you provide a little more detail about the 700 series appliance that you mentioned? Sure. So from that perspective, as we talked about, there's two different models. There's the 730 and the 750. I'll also give the team on the call here a sneak preview. We've got two new models that are coming out this quarter as well that will be even higher performance. So we've got a model coming out that will have power over Ethernet, so 16 Ethernet ports with PoE. So we'll be able to you'll be able to connect in Wi-Fi access points and use the new 730. It'll be called the 770. Use that box to connect Wi-Fi and yet provide security. So we'll have that, and then another box with even higher performance. So look for those coming out later on this quarter.
Okay, and Tracy, another question came in from Bill. He asks, when you use the 700 to do an assessment specifically, can you use the same box over and over for different assessments? Does that client have to pay for the box? How does that work?
Well, it's really up to you as the partner. One of the things that we're starting to see be really effective is almost a try and buy type scenario. And we're actually working on programs with our distributors right now to make that very easy for you as a partner to do. And that's basically where you order in the device. You order a new device. You order it in. You connect it to your secure management portal. You put it on the customer premise, and the customer evaluates for some period of time. Let's say 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. You provide the information to them that we talked about via the secure management portal. So the information on the threats and so on, and then convert that customer. And essentially say, are you sure you want me to take this thing out of here? Look at what it's finding, and sell it to them. So that's obviously the preferred method, I think, for most of us, because we recognize some revenue. The other thing we have is we have a very inexpensive demo program. So we have partners out there that have purchased our security gateways, either the 700 or even some of the larger ones. Partners that tend to focus more on the enterprise, they've purchased using our demo program, which is 70% off list price. And then they have a box they drop in, they do an assessment, they sort of take it on to the next customer, that sort of thing. So it's really, we're trying to be as flexible as we can with our products, with our programs and products, so that we meet what you're looking for. And I'll be honest with you, this this approach into the mid-market is relatively new for Checkpoint. We've been in the space for about 1.5 years now, so I'm wide open to suggestions from the partners that are on the call. What do you need to bring security to your business, and what can we do to help you be more effective?
Okay, so let me just elaborate on that question a little bit. So that's good. So if the person wants to keep it, obviously we're getting a new one, putting it on there. If the person decided not to keep it, which after they go through the sales training program and all that stuff will never happen, right? But let's say it did happen, can they then take that same 700 device over to another client and put it on their network and run the assessment, and of course do the same thing, try and buy and perhaps still buy it?
They can. I mean, it really, again, it's up to you as the partner. If you take good care of the appliance, you install it just with one customer, and you do an assessment for a couple of weeks, and for whatever reason, maybe that customer doesn't convert, then I would still feel comfortable with you using that device for the next customer. And let's understand, one of the key things that we've talked about here is transitioning to that monthly recurring revenue model. And in that model, you as the partner should own the device. So you shouldn't transfer the device over and register it to the customer, because you're providing that service. So that device actually belongs to you, and there's no reason at all you can't use it with multiple customers. Okay,
if the client, here's another question that came in about that. So if issues on their network, but they're not yet a real client because they're in that try and buy stage. I think this is what the guy is asking. But there are immediate threats on the network, and we need to get Checkpoint involved. How does that work financially? Because you mentioned the free support thing. Is that true during the try and buy period, or would they need to make the purchase and then they'd be on the program and your guys would jump in?
Well, they would. They're going to get a fully licensed box, so the box will be connected to ThreatCloud. What I'm recommending again through this program is that the reseller, as the service provider, is the owner of the box, so it's licensed to you. And even though you haven't paid for it yet, it's kind of on loan. But for the software to work, it has to be licensed. That's how it gets the connection to our cloud, and that's how it gets the updates. So the box would be licensed to Bill. I see Bill ask a question. So Bill, the box would be licensed to your company, and you would be able to partake in all of the threat information that comes down to that device because it is licensed. And then at the end of that period, you're going to need to buy it. After the evaluation period, you're going to need to either buy it or return it. And I'll be honest with you, we really like partners that are going to try to go out and sell to multiple customers. So if we're able to kick the try and buy program off, I'd really rather not have them returned.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and I had another question here from Roy, who's talking about HIPAA assessments in medical offices. And so the question was, do we need to have an agreement signed before conducting an assessment like that? And the answer to that is yes, you do. Whenever you put anything that is somewhat intrusive on somebody's network, whether you're scanning ports or collecting data or anything, you really need to have an agreement in place that first of all, they've signed off and said, yes, you're allowed to scan my ports, you're allowed to collect my data, and you also need to limit your liability. If something crashes, for instance, which could happen because of something you did, could be an operator error, could be some other issue, could be one of their problems. Don't know, right? So whenever you conduct an assessment that actually involves putting something on the network, scanning or collecting data or anything like that, you do have to have an agreement, and you need to make sure that it basically says that you're not going to be held liable, and you do have permission to do all that stuff. So, Roy, I hope I answered your question there. It doesn't even matter if it's HIPAA, anything that needs to happen. Okay. What other questions do we have? These are great questions.
Here's one, Dave. So Jerry is interested in learning a little bit more about the lunch and learns. Kind of take us through one of those. And he said in his past they've done some lunch and learns, but only a couple of technical people, like a couple of geeks, have shown up. How are you getting the owners to attend and do something once they show up?
A couple of geeks showed up. I've been to that lunch and learn.
I think we all have.
Yeah. So there's actually a couple of tools that I have on my site that help with that, but I'll give you the overview. I have a thing called the Lunch and Learn Success Kit, and it actually has all the invitations and everything written, call scripts, everything done for you. But I'll tell you what's in it, because you can build your own if you have time to do that. And I also go through it in the training program. But the key is that first of all, we use a particular kind of campaign, but the messaging is where it starts. So we know we're going after business owners. That's who we want. It's invitation only, and we're specific about that. So we don't advertise this like on our website open to anybody, because it's not open to anybody. We got 30 seats that are fairly expensive per seat. And so I actually have written a letter, and it's been proofed by a copywriter, and it doesn't look like your standard formal business letter, by the way. A lot of people, when they look at my letter, they go, well, first of all, this thing is 4 pages long. Can't we get it down to 1? And I'm like, nobody reads 1-page letters. When you get a 1-page letter from an insurance company, what do you do with it? You throw it in the trash. But when you get a multi-page letter and it has big headlines on it that are actually interesting, and not too many companies really do a good job with this, but occasionally I get one, a lot of times that will sit on a guy's desk, and we've tested this. That letter will sit on someone's desk 2 or 3 days at least. They intend to take a look at it, but they never get around to it, which is okay. So we send that letter out, and by the way, we actually send it in a big red envelope. If you're on my newsletter program, you get big red envelopes from me. That's the same envelope a lot of my clients use. And it's very effective. It's first-class mail. It's inexpensive. That letter hits their desk. It sits on their desk. And then we have a call script we use, and we call them within a day of it landing. And our hope is it'll be sitting there, and we'll say, hey, did you get the big red envelope with the 4-page letter? They know what we're talking about. And then they usually say, well, I didn't read it, though. And we're like, that's okay. Let me tell you what's in that letter, which is all you really need. We follow that letter up with 2 emails, 1 week apart. And in case we haven't gotten to the person, and we continue our calling campaign over the 4 weeks. So we hope to get them at the first, but if we don't get them, that's fine. Then we just start trying to get a hold of anybody who can get us to that guy's calendar or that woman's calendar, whoever it is. Anyway, that program has gotten us about a 10 to 25% response rate on a list. Now, I don't know if anybody out there has done direct marketing, but most direct marketing campaigns turn less than 1% up to 2%. And we're turning 10 to 25%. Our attrition rate, we also have a program for attrition. The average attrition rate on a Lunch and Learn is 50%. Our average attrition rate is 10%, and in the kit we go through all the details on that, but the bottom line is a couple things that we do that might surprise you. One is we never use buffet food. We always serve at the table, and we always call the people coming to the event to confirm their meal. And believe it or not, when people confirm that they're having a certain meal, it builds commitment because they know you're spending money on some, like a steak for them or something like that, and they actually do show up. So those 2 things have gotten amazing results. And by the way, I've also tested stuff like golf games and ball games and things like that, and none of those things lead to higher attendance, less attrition, or better conversion. I'm not saying you shouldn't do them. I'm just saying you don't need them. We do a 2-hour event, 1-hour talk. Conversion is 90 to 100%. What more do you want? So there it is, nutshell.
No, that's great. Let's see what else we have for questions here. Let me scroll back to the chat room.
So here was a question that I got here, which was, I talked a lot about detection. And so they said here, so does the checkpoint firewall, because, firewalls usually are, to block stuff. So this person says, well, does this box actually provide real-time detection? I guess they're thinking like SIM technology. Is it like detecting traffic versus just being a firewall? I think that's what they're asking.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely does. So the entire point of the deep packet inspection and some of the other technologies is to inspect the traffic that's coming through the gateway in real time and recognize that. So there's 2 types of malware out there that's really predominant today, and that is malware that is recognized that a signature has been created for. And so as we talked about before, the gateways, if they're maintained properly, will be connected to the threat cloud, and they will get live updates of the signatures. So if traffic goes through the gateway where a signature is recognized of malware, that will be blocked right then at that moment in real time, and a notification will be sent through the management system. So that's a key thing. Now the other thing that's out there that we talked about a little bit was that there are many variants of malware, in fact, that are happening in real time. Checkpoint, we show a statistic that in 2014 there were 142 million different variants of malware that were created. So the hackers are out there changing the threat just a little bit, changing the program just a little bit so that it's able to evade antivirus and all the different signatures that are out there. And that's really the strength of the sandblast technology that we talked about before. So again, keep your eye on that. That'll be coming in the summertime. That is really going to be groundbreaking for small medium businesses.
So Tracy, while you're on that, there's another assessment question that came from Dana, and he wants to know if you're doing the assessment, the person already has a firewall, some other brand, and you're going to use this $700 to do the assessment. Do you put it inside the network or outside, in front or behind the firewall?
I think you could do it either way. We've certainly done that. We've done that in a bake-off type environment where the customer says, no, I've got a gateway in place, I'm protected, I'm covered, and we've done a security checkup by placing a checkpoint device as a LAN client of that gateway and just connected it to the internet via that existing firewall, and we've shown them what we've picked up that went through their existing solution, And we then picked it up and said, well, that's funny. Your report from the other guy doesn't show all this stuff. So that's kind of a in-your-face type approach. The other thing you can do is connect it. And some of it's going to be how does the business owner react, and what do they want to do, and even something as simple as, if they have a simple network, how are they connected to the internet? If they've got simple CPE where they've basically got a cable modem, let's say, with one LAN port, well, then you're going to have to either remove the device they have or go in line behind it. So some situations may dictate that. In all honesty, what you're showing are the threats that the device can pick up, and ideally, you're going to pick up something that their existing solution didn't pick up, and you can show it either way.
Okay. And then someone also asked, Bill asked, as an addition to that, so once you've collected the data, are you seeing that by connecting directly to the 700 with like a laptop or something, or are you looking at a web shot of that?
You can do either one. So the strength of the secure management portal is your administrator, your technical guy who's keeping watch of the security, would log into the portal and see the report or see the events that have happened on that particular customer's device, and be able to make some changes, right in the portal. Maybe change the profile a little bit, open up a URL or block a URL. Some basic maintenance along those lines you can do right in the portal, and that will push that configuration back down to the gateway. You may want to connect to the gateway to write a more specific rule. If there's a particular application that's being impacted, so that a firewall rule needs to be written to improve the performance of that application, then you can actually use the secure management portal to connect to the gateway. So you would actually create a session and connect into the console of that gateway directly, but you do it through the secure management portal. So it's really simple, from that perspective.
All right, cool. I wanted to mention here, before we run out of time, that if you didn't click on the button on the right-hand side of your screen for the training request, make sure you do that. A bunch of people already have, but make sure you have clicked on that if you want to get involved in that, because that's what's going to really help you ramp up and get going. And then I also want to mention, and of course if there's any other questions, pop those in now, but we also want to give Tracy a moment to tell us who's going to get the 700 series device for free for attending this webinar. And while we're working through that, we actually do have another question, but I also just wanted to again thank Ingram Micro and for Checkpoint for sponsoring this and making this possible for everybody. So here's a question from Jesse. He says, can you elaborate on where you see the opportunity is for the MSP to gain monthly recurring revenue if only selling the 700? Okay, so let me, and then you can certainly chime if you have additional, Tracy. Here's what we're saying. We need some way to move to a detection response strategy. So if you're already, and I know a lot of companies are doing secure managed, firewall, but managed firewall is a commodity. So we need a way to get in there and show them that you actually are being attacked, because most small business owners don't realize they're being attacked. They don't realize that there is malware 80 or 90% of the time somewhere in their computing environment, inside the network. So that's a huge, huge problem. So what we're doing is we're saying, because you haven't been looking for this type of malware in the past, there's a high probability it exists, and we do find it most of the time. So we need some technology that's going to allow us to find that kind of malware. And we have some kind of feedback here. I don't know who that is, but anyway. So what we're saying is the 700 is a device that can give us that intelligence. And when we're connected to the threat cloud on an ongoing fashion, it's one of the pieces of the puzzle that allows us to go to market and say, we really do have a detection response oriented MMSP. And so I have a lot of clients that are using this technology, and they're going in and they're taking out an older model kind of firewall that doesn't really have a lot of intelligence, and they're not selling a new firewall, they're just selling a new program. They're saying, hey, in the future we're going to be monitoring 7x24. We're going to have this new device we put on your network, because that helps us collect all the data we need so that we can really watch what's coming and going. If malware comes in through email, we can detect that. And then they're also adding other pieces, and we didn't really talk about this, Tracy. If you just have a second here, because I know we're running low on time, but the mobile security aspect from Checkpoint is another missing piece. A lot of people are doing or looking at MDM, But we're not talking about MDM. We're talking about keeping threats off of people's phones and tablets and laptops with mobile security technology. So can you just hit quickly what that is? Because that kind of concludes the whole piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as I talked about before, businesses and especially small businesses are doing work everywhere, and they're doing work on their iPhones or their Androids, their tablets, and so on, and they're at tremendous risk. So even though they think they may be connected securely or using a VPN or something like that in a coffee shop, all using a VPN means is you've got a secure tunnel to transmit that virus back to your home office. So running threat prevention on the mobile device is key. And Check Point has a solution, mobile threat prevention for both iOS and Android devices. So any of the devices that are running those operating systems can run this mobile threat prevention, very inexpensive. You also have a dashboard, so you could provide that as a managed service to the customer. So let them know where their devices are, what's happening there. If any threats are found, it'll block a malware type application from installing. Most malware for mobile devices is coming disguised as applications, as apps that are downloaded. So they're able to evade the Google, especially with Android, but now it's happening with iOS as well. You're starting to see threats come out where apps are masquerading as legitimate applications. They're in the iTunes store. You download them and start to install. And what mobile threat prevention does is it recognizes that there's the install is going a different way than what the norm should be, and it actually blocks that app from even installing.
Great. So the answer really, Jesse, is that these different technologies are providing a detection of something malicious, and then immediately either blocking it or giving us access to something like Threat Cloud where we can analyze it and have intelligence. So without that intelligence message, you're really just in a commodity business, and that's kind of where we need to move. Okay, good. So if anybody else has a question, feel free to stick it in there. We just have probably a minute for one more question. But Tracy, we might want to move to the 700 announcement.
Yeah. So Ryan has turned on the supercomputer here and gone through our complex algorithm to pick the winner, and it is David Litt of Blue Star Tech. So hopefully David is still on the line. If you are, please send us a note. Let us know you're out there.
All right, David Litt. Or if you're out there, just send us a quick email that says that you are out there. I know we got a couple of comments from you earlier, so. Oh, there he is. Woohoo!
David's excited. All right.
So big applause to David. Congratulations. So you'll be able to check all this stuff out, and of course the price point's low, so anybody can. And again, we got a couple of last seconds. If you haven't clicked the training thing, you want to do that. I also want to mention that you can get the House in the Cloud book for just $1 on my blog, which is davidstelzel.com, spelled like it is in the message box up there, davidstelzel.com. And very good. So, and somebody else piped in and said they work with David Litt. So now you know somebody who is a celebrity. It's Brian, right? So there you go. And you'll get to check out the box as well. Any closing comments, Tracy?
No, I just send a quick note out to all. Thanks to everybody for attending. We hope this was valuable for you. We will be reaching out to you and talk to you about your thoughts on the presentation and see if you're interested in learning more about Check Point, joining our program, and so on. So thanks again for attending.
All right, good. And again, we had the licensing-checkpoint at ingrammicro.com is how you get in touch with the team over there.
Checkpoint-licensing at ingrammicro.com.
Sorry, Checkpoint licensing.
You got it.
Very good. Thanks, Ryan.
Yep.
And thank you, Ryan, for being on the program with us today. And we thank
Thanks
our friends from Ingram Micro for their sponsorship as well. Everyone, enjoy your afternoon. We'll be getting back to you as quickly as possible on the training and connecting with you through Ingram to get you the David who won the 700. We'll get that out to you. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy your afternoon. And if you have questions, feel free to email me on the email I put up there in the message box. And enjoy your day.